What's up, everybody? Sparrowwood again here from Sleepless Nights with another episode on Elite Dangerous. When we left off in the last episode, we had made quite a bit more progress towards A-star, and also ran into a very strange and interesting neutron star. Though admittedly, you know, there's not a whole lot to announce usually about, like, last time on this, you know, because it's more exploring. So there's that. I am going through, if you can't already tell, I'm kind of going through normal routes. I'm not really using a neutron star route at the moment. To be quite honest, I didn't go back in between last episode and clear out my bookmarks, so I don't have any more bookmark locations available. So I couldn't use the neutron router to set and plot a path using the neutron stars, but it's not really a big deal because I have been doing some off-camera work. Before I started recording this episode, I was doing, for like 30-40 minutes, something like that, I just did some extra jumping, and I think currently we're at 3,300 light years, so we're about 3 routes, give or take. Because a route you can do standard like this for about 1,000 light years, or like 999, whatever. But so we're roughly at about 3 plots and change, 3 routes and change kind of thing. So realistically, if I keep doing what I've been doing, where like the day I recorded, spending at least a half hour or something ahead of schedule, ahead of recording, doing some jumps. Like, I almost completed a full route. I was down to 5 jumps before I decided I was running out of time and needed to just start recording. Because I am kind of shifting my schedule around behind the scenes a little bit again. So it does slightly affect my recording schedule since Final Fantasy ended. Because now that Final Fantasy is over, this will be the first week of basically 1 episode a day of various different series, or not a day, one episode per week that equals a series per day, if that makes sense. So, basically, I had been doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays doing Final Fantasy, and since that's done and we finished the game, I'm not really doing that anymore. But I'm really trying not to add back into the schedule, because there's kind of this inherent, if you keep adding things back into the schedule, it never gets any better kind of thing. So when something completes, it's not like, yay, there's a new opening for something else. You know, it's like, no, because then you're back to doing more episodes on multiple days. And for those of you that may not be aware, I am working on other projects in the background of my channel stuff. My channel isn't all that I'm doing. Actually, it's becoming less and less what I'm doing, even though you guys don't probably see that, because I'm still putting out daily episodes and things like that. It's becoming less of a focus for me, and I'm focusing more on these other projects because I'm really trying to buckle down and get them done. Primarily, my biggest thing at the moment is my book. I'm working on a sci-fi action type series. It's one of those that I've written Caden Red Pearl and I have written the story for years, but it's always been like mind maps and outlines, so we're both kind of first dipping your toe into the pool of actually trying to get it out there for people to see. And unfortunately, I've been told that my writing is pretty good, but like to test, you know, friends and family and stuff that I've shown the book to that I'm working on, and kind of like, what do you think? Should I change this? Is it good enough? That kind of stuff. And I've gotten pretty good reception from it for the most part. That, you know, obviously I don't have a ton of experience. I've never written a book before, but at the same time, though, it's kind of like there's some that you can tell right off the bat. It's like, no, pick a different project, you know, that kind of thing. But unfortunately for me, I never really intended to make a book. It's kind of become a product of circumstance, if that makes sense. Originally, Caden Red Pearl and I always developed it as a show or a movie or something like that in mind. But realistically, nobody just jumps out of their garage and starts making, you know, Marvel-level Hollywood sci-fi movies kind of thing. It just doesn't happen. It's like, I mean, unless you're some trust fund person that has, like, millions of dollars in a fund somewhere that you can pull from and fund it yourself, it just doesn't usually happen. So, realistically, we took a step back a few years ago and was kind of like, what's the realistic way we're going to get this done? And we talked about doing game stuff, but again, we hadn't really done a project or a game where we felt comfortable that we could do the story justice with just us and not being able to hire like a big team or something to do a good, well-polished project. So ultimately, we landed on books, or in his case, he's doing kind of a cool... I hope it works for him, because it's a neat idea of kind of this hybrid, kind of sort of graphic novel, kind of sort of novel kind of thing, because he's kind of outside the box thinker. He doesn't usually try and do the same things that other people do. Me, I can't draw for crap. Like, it would be stick figure graphic novels, and even the stick figures would probably be disproportionate. So I opted for more of like the straight novel type of thing. They're going to be smaller. It's not going to be like a Game of Thrones or something. But, I mean, I'm kind of shooting for just when it's finished type of thing. Like, I'm not really shooting for a specific word count or anything. But anyways, I've been really trying to push to get that done, because I want to see if I can actually get somewhere with that and get it out there and see how it does and that kind of thing. Because for those of you that don't really know, if I haven't explained the situation in a while, I kind of, all I'm really doing is YouTube at the moment, in terms of finance stuff, and it really does not, it's really not working very well. I'm getting support from family and stuff like that to keep from having a typical 9 to 5, and I was hoping at one point that, you know, my channel would boost to the point, or either through Patreon or through the YouTube ad, you know, Google AdSense, whatever, that it would kind of pick up the slack. And not that it's doing bad, because it's not. Like, it all depends on what you're going for. Because in terms of growth and community and stuff like that, I've been really happy with my channel. It's continued to grow. It's never really just bottomed out and, you know, stopped growing. And, you know, whenever you get more than 50 people or something, you're always going to get, every once in a while, people that are negative or naysayers, or, you know, not to quote Taylor Swift, but, you know, the hater's going to hate, all that kind of stuff. But I've been very pleased. One thing that, because, fun fact, Kane Red Pearl that runs, he was doing Infinity Gamer as his channel, hasn't actually done a lot on his channel in recent years. But the interesting part is he was actually doing YouTube stuff before I was, but he only did a few things, and then he kind of got busy and did other things and never really got back around to doing video content. And so it was actually kind of interesting that I started after him, and at this point, because he hasn't really been active on his channel, mine has kind of just completely gone. Like, I think last time I checked, I think he had like, you know, 6 videos and 400 subscribers or something like that. So because I've been doing it more regularly, my channel has become much larger. But he was the one that actually kind of helped me a little bit when I first started, as far as, you know, one of the things he told me, because I'm kind of a closet perfectionist type of thing, and sometimes not so closeted. You know, I tend to want everything to be like, I'm a like 90% perfectionist and definitely a completionist. Like, once I start something, I really want to see it through. That depends, but most of the time that holds true. There's a few cases where, no, I really don't want to, but I try to anyway. And so, like, you know, it's one of those where you want, like, all positives and things like that. And he was the kind of, you know, voice in the ear kind of thing, was just like, that's never going to happen on the internet. You know, you're never going to get just 100%, you're never going to please everyone. Not everybody is going to like you. That's just the way that the world works. And so he was the one that kind of taught me to look at everything on YouTube and stuff, or internet in general, as ratios. It's like, you may have 5 negative comments that are like, oh, this is awful, blah, blah, blah. But if you have like 200 that are like, this is the best, that is a great ratio. Like, that's amazing. So I kind of had to learn that, and it took me a little bit to kind of overwrite my, my perfectionist and completionist kind of OCD about that. Of like, oh, I got a dislike, panic, pandemonium, and it was through his kind of advice and stuff that I started to kind of take it like, okay, that's like 1 dislike, you have 20 likes or something, that kind of thing, and go from there. So overall, I've been very happy with my channel. It's always continued to grow. My subscriber count has, for the most part, always gone up. I mean, there's a few little times where it dipped and you lost a couple that's, here or there. And the weird part about the subscriber count, like when you just look at how many subscribers a channel has, it's like current subscriber count. It's not I don't know really how to explain it, but essentially if you actually looked on the other behind-the-scenes side of a channel, like per month, you can see, like if I just look at my count and it's up by 200, you're like, oh cool, I got 200, but that's not always the case. When you actually look at the analytics, you may have actually gained 700 and lost 500. You know what I mean? So it still went up because you gained more than you lost, but it's not technically like a global total. It's more of a last tallied kind of thing. So I won't say that I haven't had dips in subscribers where I lost quite a few, but it's for the most part consistently always gained more than I've lost, which again, ratios. If you're gaining more than you're losing, that's a good sign depending on the ratio. I mean, you don't want it to be neck and neck, but as long as you're consistently gaining more, and I am. I mean, we were just recently, it wasn't more than, gosh, I'd have to go back and look, but it wasn't more than a few months ago that I was at like 75, 7,700, somewhere in there, and we're already up to like 8,300, so that's great. And I really appreciate everybody that turns out or turns up and watches my stuff and subscribes and leaves feedback and all that. I appreciate that. That's kind of what keeps everything going. But it depends on what you're trying to do with a channel. If it's a hobby or something, then by all accounts, this is amazing. Like, I'm doing wonderful because I've actually got 8,000 people that subscribe to my stuff. Now, when you compare that to the big people like, I don't know, PewDiePie, that is a spit in the bucket, if that. Like, in the desert, kind of thing, when the sun's gonna dry it up as soon as it hits the bucket, kind of thing. But for moi, who wasn't really confident about whether or not people actually wanted to see your stuff and things like that, that's great. I'm really happy with it. I'm basically happy as long as it stays positive, as long as the ratio to happy, positive people are higher than the people that aren't happy, and as long as my subscriber count keeps going up, even if it's a, chipping away, one at a time, it's still going up. It's still a positive. It's still an improvement. As long as you're getting better or improving, I'm good. The only problem is when you're looking at that as a full-time, I want to be a YouTuber or an internet entertainer, whatever the technical actual term is on your tax return kind of thing. When you get to that point or want to get to that point, then by all accounts, this is not really that viable at the moment. Not saying that it wouldn't be down the road, but for now, it's not really bringing in what I need it to fully stand on my own 2 legs and support myself. So, I'll admit that, most would say, well, why don't you just go out and get a job kind of thing. Well, I could. I've tried certain things, but it's a long story. But essentially, the bottom line is, I've always had in my head I wanted to be a creator of content, whether it be movies, games, books, whatever. I wanted to tell stories and create worlds and do stuff, that was always a passion of mine. It was always something I wanted to do. Even when I went to college for game design and stuff, or game programming, it was with the intent to go eventually start my own game company and make my own games. Like, there was never a moment where it was like, I want to sit in a cubicle and do that forever. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing if that's what you want to do, but that's not me. I want to do my thing. And so I'm trying to kind of test the waters and do different things. And originally when I started my channel, it was actually to become an advertisement platform. That it was a hobby, it was for fun and to build an audience. And then when I did make a game or I did write a book or something like that, you know, then it was, hey, I'm not going in cold turkey and just releasing a book on Amazon or whatever and no one knows about it. I can make a video and reach out to all these people that watch my stuff. And then when it started doing well and booming, then it was like, hey, maybe I could just do this forever. And that was kind of what I focused on for a while, but last few years it's kind of become apparent that unless something really boomed really soon, that's not going to happen, at least not in my acceptable time frame. So I started looking back into other projects and games and books and things like that, and the bottom line was I had tried a couple different things. The only two project things I had tried or hadn't tried was my books and or a game. I had never made either of those types of projects to completion and then released them somewhere and had good results. So then it became, well, try that and then, you know, see what happens. So currently the game is something that I want to do, but it's a very slow process at the moment because it's a joint effort between Caden and I, and he has been very busy, and so it's kind of one of those, I'm not like putting all the blame on him or anything like that, but it's one of those that I haven't been as motivated to work on it when I know that part of the project hinges on stuff that he has to end up doing, and I know he doesn't have time to do it right now. So it's kind of one of those, like, kind of work on what you can get done, and I don't really need anyone else to work on a book. You know, that's just me sitting down and having the patience and time to sit down and work on it. So if for any of you that weren't aware, I tried to kind of vocalize it, but I don't know that it came out very clear. Or if you're just tuning in and just watching stuff and missed those videos where I talked about it, that was the big reason why the first of the year I shifted my schedule around and cut, like, from doing like 2 or 3 episodes a day all week long, and I cut it down to like 1 episode a day other than the Final Fantasy one, because I knew Final Fantasy wasn't going to last very much longer. I was almost at the end. And to refer back to completionism, I wanted to see it through. I already left Kingdom Hearts hanging, which I still feel bad about. At least with Metal Gear, I finished the current game I was on before I stopped. And most of the other games that I just stopped were sandbox, and they don't really have an end. So Kingdom Hearts was really the only one that I kind of just left hanging. And that's one of those I always felt really kind of like miffed about that. But again, I just couldn't really justify going back to it when I had other things that were doing much better. And I had already stopped it. It wasn't like I was still doing it or something. So at this point, that was a very long-winded way to get around to the schedule change that I had, but it won't affect any of you guys for viewing and upload times or anything like that, but it will affect me recording them, which I guess ipso facto will affect you guys and the videos that come out. So basically, I'd been recording 3 episodes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to cover my 7 episodes throughout the week and the 2 Final Fantasies. Well, without those 2 Final Fantasies, I've moved it around to give myself an extra couple of days throughout the week to work on other projects where I don't have a recording day. So it'll be Monday, I'm recording 4 things now, and then Friday I'm recording 3 things, and that'll cover my normal 7 days. So it's kind of one of those where it gives me an extra day, like then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday are all open for me to work on other projects like my book or whatever else I decide I need to get done, which will help a lot in getting that done and getting it done faster. However, it limits the amount of time I have for each episode, because now you're taking more episodes per time when you do sit down to record. And kind of in the case of Elite here, I probably could have sat down and spent an extra hour or two rather than just 30 minutes, and maybe could have actually gotten to a star by the time, you know, I was ready to record an episode. But then that's 2 hours of the day that you can't spend working on the other 3 things that you have to record. So that's what I meant by it may in fact end up affecting the videos themselves, but it won't affect the release schedule or anything like that. But there may be times where I bring up, you know, I didn't really have time to do off-camera stuff or something of that nature. And that's what I'm talking about, is because I've consolidated my days that I record down to 2 for all week. And so it opens me up a lot to get some of my projects done. So I hope they'll be done much sooner than I originally expected, because now I'll have more days to work on them. It's kind of one of those things like my mother keeps telling me, you know, if you never work on it, it never gets done. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I wish it did, because for any of you that don't know, if you're not like a super passionate writer in terms of like, you know, I just love how the words become art on a page, and, you know, if you're not like super into the medium of writing is so boring. It's so tedious. And so it's one of those, like, to write, you know, books don't write themselves, unfortunately. I wish someone, you know, we make all these VR Oculus Rift crap. I wish we could make a helmet that you could just put on and then think about things and picture them in your mind, and then somehow through some software it just does them. You know, like you have a 3D animated high quality movie thing made. You know, that would be literally the best thing I have ever heard of being invented since, like, you know, air. To me, like, that would be awesome. So if any of you are watching and happen to be super geniuses, go make that. And, you know, I wouldn't mind like a 1% little like idea in instigation or whatever, you know, fee. That would be fine. Royalties is fine. But seriously, yeah, writing a book takes a lot of time. At least for me, because I don't like writing. It just happens to be the easiest method to get a story out there. And that's something that's very interesting, is it's changed a lot. That when you look back, even 5 or 10 years ago, but mostly further back, like 20 plus years or something, the way people had to do books and stuff was, you know, it was hard to become an author. Let alone a successful one, because everything relied on you having something good enough that a book publisher would like write a deal with you and print and publish your book and everything. And nowadays with ebooks and stuff, shoot, anybody with a word processor can write a book. It's incredible. And there's even places like lulu.com and stuff that if you want to do print, you can actually order and design your own books and have them print them for you. You don't even need a publisher for that. Now, you would have to, you know, if you wanted them in stores, you would then have to work with, you know, the stores to get some kind of deal going or something of that effect. And that may require a publisher, I don't know. But as far as online, if you're just selling it on your website or something like that, you can even print and sell your own printed paperback, hardback, whatever, from your own stores kind of thing. Without ever talking to publishers and stuff. And that's crazy when you think about it, as far as self-publishing has become such a big deal. Before, it was kind of a stigma. It was like, you know, that looks like an interesting book. Oh, it was self-published. Oh, it was self-published. You know, that kind of thing. And ebooks and stuff was always frowned upon as kind of like authors that couldn't afford a publishing deal or something like that. And now it's just become so big that a lot of even publishers that, or book authors that do paperback, hardback, and they do in stores, they'll still sell them as ebooks or online or something, because it's such a huge market. So it's interesting how that whole landscape has changed, and at this point in time, if you have a good idea and it's properly edited, and I'm not saying that you'll be successful. Heck, I don't even know if mine will do well or not, but it's that there isn't, like, the barrier has become, did you write it well? Is it a well-written book? Is it a good story? Are the good, you know, those kinds of things are now what's going to limit you, not as much of, like, well, couldn't get the deal, or I couldn't get the contract, or what, it's not as, it doesn't have as big of an entry barrier anymore. It just kind of comes down to whether or not you're any good, and if anybody can find you. That's like the two big things that I've seen in investigating and trying to research and learn how to go about publishing myself and all that kind of stuff when I'm ready to do so. Is the two biggest things I've seen is basically, is it actually any good and well written and well edited and there is kind of a level of polish, just like video games or movies or whatever, that you'd still need. I mean, you don't want bad grammar in English and punctuation or format, or it still kind of has to be presentable in a well written manner. But it's like, is your book polished, and is it good, and does it have a good story, and or is it enjoyable to read, and all that stuff. And then the big thing is, do people notice you, or do you get lost in the crowd of all the other self-publishers and stuff that are all over everywhere? So it's an endeavor that I'm kind of interested to see how it actually ends up unfolding. But I really am trying to take more time with it, though, and get it done, because I find it a very tedious process. It's very difficult for me to sit for more than an hour or two and work on a book, but I really need to. Like, it's one of those, I don't care if you like it or not, you need to look at this as like a job and just do it until it's done. Because I'm about, I want to say, probably halfway through my first, unedited draft other than myself. Like, I'm just kind of writing it out, and then I'll go back and clean it up and try and edit and stuff like that, and have other test people look at it and give me feedback and things. So it's like, I'm not close to done with it, but I'm probably about halfway through my first major draft completion, like from start to finish, the story's done kind of thing. Whether you tell it in a different manner, or if you do more details or descriptions of the overall events and everything will be done. But I'm probably about halfway through that, I think, if I have my outline set up the way that it actually is going to stay and nothing changes along the way. Because sometimes that happens. As I'm writing, I'll add in whole sequences and elements that I didn't intend to do. It's just part of the process. But so yeah, that's kind of just to kind of give you guys, since Elite at the moment has kind of turned into my platform for podcasting, because I don't actually do any kind of like weekly update videos. I don't know, maybe I should do some kind of like weekly brief summary of what's going on, but normally not enough changes. Usually once I make a change or something every little bit, or when a series is ending or something, and then I shift the slots around or something like that. But usually I don't have enough to talk about every week to do a some kind of summary thing. But it's been hard because I finished Elite, so then, or not Elite, Final Fantasy, so then I push everything out to the side, and I'm like, okay, these are going to be my new series that I'm sticking with, and now I'm down to, one per day every week, so I have like 7 different series going. But there is a small part of me that's like, ooh, a time slot opened up, and I'm like, no, it didn't. You got to stick with this. That kind of thing. I've done YouTube long enough that when I see something good, I'm like, ooh, that would be a good series, that kind of thing. Though, I have been surprised by what does and doesn't work. For example, I was very surprised at how little connection there was with the Final Fantasy series. And I say that because it's a big name, it was a big game, there was a lot riding on it, it's been a long time coming, it's been developed for like 10 years, and so as big of a franchise name as Final Fantasy was and stuff, I assumed it would be everywhere, like a lot of people would be looking for videos, not just for my channel, but just all over the internet. Like, I've assumed you'd just see videos in your timeline all the time of a lot of these YouTubers doing Final Fantasy because it was this big, and I really didn't see it that much. It was one of those, the people that do that kind of content did it, obviously, but then it was like a lot of big Let's Players and things like that. I really didn't see a lot of them playing it. And so it kind of surprised me, and then even in my own series, it really didn't resonate very well. It was like, the view count was considerably lower than most of my other series. I pretty much stuck to it just for the completionism of sticking with it and finishing it kind of thing. So that kind of surprised me a little bit, but there's a few coming out. There's, you know, the Horizon Zero Dawn that I've thought about. There's Mass Effect Andromeda that I've thought about doing a series on, and stuff like that, and I keep like, no, stop it. You know, like, don't add more to the schedule. You want to keep your schedule clear so you can do these other projects. So it's been real tough for me because I've YouTubed long enough, it's become a habit where something really big and really anticipated becomes, ooh, I should do a series on that. And I'm like, no, there's too many coming out to do that. I'll end up back at 2 a day or 3 a day, and it's just going to be a vicious circle kind of thing. So I've really been struggling with that where, you know, it's one of those, and especially something like Mass Effect. If you do a series on that where you're doing it once or twice a week and you're not doing daily episodes or something, that I could see being a game you do for like ever, because it's just one of those bigger RPGs that, you know, people finish relatively quickly because they'll sit down for a weekend and just play it. You don't realize how many hours you put into games like that when you're just playing them on a Saturday afternoon or something. But when you're doing half-hour episodes and it's a couple times a week, that is incredibly slow pace considering how you would normally play it. Here's a good example. I've been recently trying to platinum both Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 because of the Dark Souls 3 DLC that's coming out. And it kind of I think I spoke about that in the last episode where it kind of jarred me back into being in that mode kind of thing. I looked up my Dark Souls 3 playtime because I only have one character because I've been trying to get the Platinum Trophy, which is do, you know, all this stuff. And it's easier when you do it all on one guy because you're always leveling that guy. So the stronger that character gets, the easier doing the rest of the game will be kind of thing. It's kind of one of those, if you're going to do it multiple times, if you're not trying to do just multiple playthroughs for different reasons, like, you know, I'm using a strength build, well, I want to use a dex build. You can keep leveling one person or one character up and eventually get them to where they could do both, but the amount of time and grinding that takes to get enough souls to do that is crazy. I mean, if you're trying to grind out other trophies or something, and you happen to get enough soul levels to do that, that's different. But I mean, just to do that thing, it's easier to just start a new guy. I'm going for more of the collect everything, do everything, and it's just easier when you're doing it all on one character because then, you know, you don't have to, oh, that was the last guy I did that on and stuff like that. And you're always adding to that character's power level because you're always putting all of the grind souls and all that kind of stuff that you're doing to get the items. You always dump that into one guy. So you end up being overpowered, if that's a thing. To me, I don't think there is such a thing as overpowered in Dark Souls and in the Soulsborne series. That's just not a thing to me. Because overpowered implies that the game becomes easier because you're stronger than you're supposed to be. Yeah, I don't think that ever happens. At least not for me. I'm not the best player in the world. I'm persistent. I never give up, and so I end up completing them and doing all the areas and everything. But I won't say by any stretch that I'm a great player or even a good player, to be honest. It's like I watch people on YouTube or Twitch or whatever. Actually, I primarily watch Epic Name Bro for anything Soulsborne because I found him when the series first kind of started, and I've always liked his content. Or at least I've always liked that he focused more on the story because the stories were always so abstract in that series that it was always nice hearing his perspective on them because he worked on guides and everything like that. So I always liked his lore content for the series. But I will watch him play, and he's doing stuff that I wouldn't be as good at doing. You know, like he loves parrying things, and I'm like, half the time I don't even try because I always get, you know, smashed in the face trying to parry things and all that kind of stuff. For any of you that are familiar with the series and know what I'm talking about. And then he'll say, you know, I'm not really that good. There's a lot of other people that are way better than me. And I'm like, yeah, you're way better than me, so what's that make me? So I'm pretty much the persistent but not great player kind of thing. I just keep going and until eventually I get to the point where, hey, I finally beat the guy through, you know, just persistence. Anyways, so I've been playing a lot of that and trying to get that and trying to platinum those and things like that, because I'm trying to get them off my hard drive on my PlayStation, because, you know, every game now is like 40-50 gigs, and when you have like a 500 gig drive or something, that fills up really quick. Especially when you play Elder Scrolls Online, which is like 85 or something ridiculous. That is probably the largest game in terms of size, file size. That is probably the largest game I have ever seen. But anyways, so I've been trying to, it's kind of been twofold, is that I'm trying to get those platinums and stuff, but I'm also, you know, because of the renewed interest in mood and everything, but I'm also just trying to get them done because I want them off my hard drive so that I can put other things like Mass Effect, For Honor, Horizons, all these other games that are coming out that look interesting. And so there's that, but one of the things that's interesting is I checked my Dark Souls 3 playtime, and because I've been trying to do all the Covenant items and stuff to get the trophies, I have like 120 hours into that game. And I thought to myself, what would have happened if you were making a YouTube series on this? And it's one of those, I mean, if you think about it, 120 hours is like, that would be like 240 half-hour episodes. And I'm like, gosh, and if you're doing that once a week, that's 240 weeks that you would have been playing that game. That's a long time for one series to run. So I'm always leery of getting into a big, and some would argue, well, Final Fantasy was that big and then you still ended up only doing, you know, 30 episodes. That's true. But I did also skip a ton of content. I was not really playing it organically. I was kind of just playing it, once I saw that there wasn't a huge interest in it, I was kind of just playing it for the story completion side of things. And so I didn't really play it the way that I probably would have just played a game I'm having fun with kind of thing and want to explore. So I'm always leery of stuff like that, but it's hard with the scheduling things to do that. But, you know, because like I said, there's a bunch of stuff coming out, and, you know, then it's like, ooh, that would make a good series. Ooh, that would make a good series. And I was like, no, Bad Sparrow, stop it. You know, it's like you're just going to add more time to everything kind of thing. So it's been kind of tough to fight that urge sometimes, because part of me kind of wants to do series, but, you know, to be honest, kind of like Final Fantasy, I don't know that they'd actually do that well, so it may not be something that's really worth doing anyway, so I may not be missing out on much. And there's still things I'm going to play. It's not like I'm not playing them or anything like that, so it comes out in the wash, I suppose. But anyways, we're at like 2,400, so with any luck, another episode or two. I had originally said 5 or 6, but at that rate, especially if I'm doing a little bit before I start recording it each time or something to that effect, we're looking at 3 max, probably 2, to be honest, because I could easily do 400 like the morning before I start recording an episode type of thing, and that would put us at two routes essentially before we get to A-star. So we're closing in. We are really, really close. I would say probably about 2 episodes, 2 good episodes type of thing. And I'm thankful for those of you that are watching this far, this long, for sticking through, because I've gotten a few comments, and I myself am feeling the same way, of it's kind of getting redundant with the exploration thing, and we need to go back to something like bounty hunting. I actually really agree. I'm appreciative of all those people that are commenting saying, you know, it doesn't bother me. I listen to it, or I watch it, and I enjoy it, whatever. That's great. I am glad you're enjoying it. I'm not enjoying it as much as I was when I started, and so it's, again, completionism, the stick-to-itiveness, the persistence is kind of where I'm right here, so I can't see just giving up at this point. That, and I'm not really sure how I'm getting back. So, yeah. But hopefully we'll be able to shift gears really soon in the next few episodes kind of thing, and we won't have as slow content type of thing, and we can get back into the swing of bounty hunting and combat and that more action, fast-paced kind of stuff, and upgrading our ships and yada 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 yada. So on that note, we're going to wrap things up here. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.